So we're going to begin looking at how to build the harness. I'm not going to go into a full lesson about every single detail about how you would do that. Just to kind of go into a bit more information just on one or two of the pieces that are on here, and just to give you some of the sort of not the trickier parts, but the things that you might have to do a bit more work with are going to be things like the crotch loop, how you route that, and then just to kind of go into the top spine plate and how that's going to work. What you can use a lot of the time, of course, is the small pieces of rubber, which of course are great. I prefer them on the waistband myself. And instead, if I'm going to tie down excess bits of webbing, I prefer to use a piece of bicycle inner tube. I get these for free from the local bicycle shop. So these are from a mountain bike. And so these, yeah, about 4.5 centimeters wide. Webbing is 5, so that's giving you enough slack there. So I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces. And the idea is it's just going to cover the loose pieces and give a little bit of protection to stop it from fraying. And I'll need 2, one for the crotch and one for the base of the neck. For the routing, you can see that it's essentially got a built-in tri-glide. So just to show you how this would actually fit. So what I'll do first is I'll drop a piece of rubber over the spine. So I'm just going to fold the webbing in half. And just slide that down out of the way. And then for the plate, if you think about it, the way I want it to finish is with the excess being away from the diver, so it's being on the back of the diver. So in order to have the logo visible, you have to come in from the top, through the middle, through the third plate. And then what you can see on the underside, of course, is that this slot was double width. So that can come in here. And then this is what you would see on the back. And all you would then do is use the rubber just to retain that part and make sure that it's hidden. So that's there, and that will be the top part there. If you then look down at the crotch piece, obviously we've got to make a crotch loop. We need a loop that's going to be big enough to allow a piece of webbing to run in there. So that's the first thing you've got to think about. Then of course I want a D-ring because I want a scooter with this. And the same idea, I want to have the excess on the inside there. So I can just show you how that's actually routed. I just make the pieces a little bit larger for you to see. So it's a little bit trickier, this one, and it does take a little bit of thinking about. I find it's much easier to make it bigger than you need and reduce the size later. Now you can use a big D-ring. You can also use a double width tri-glide with wider slots. Me personally, I like the slimmer one. If the webbing's thin enough to go through, I get a better hole if that's in place. So we'll try and do the same idea where we'll put a piece of rubber out of the way, ready to take the excess. And then I'll think about getting the third part of the D-ring in. So what I know is that I want the second piece to be something like this, so that's big enough here. And I can always do a little bit of fine adjustment. And it's that excess that I'm going to tuck under here. So to do this, I'm going to pull that out and give myself plenty of slack. I'm going to take the tail end here and I'm going to feed that inside. Just give myself a bit more room. When you're running the second loop back through the tri-glide, I find that I want to put it through the D-ring as well. So I've got 2 bits of webbing securing that. And I tend to find that the pull from the DPV doesn't upset the location of that quite so much if I do that. So the webbing has gone back through the 2 pieces. And then I'm now pulling the webbing clear to try to make this slot as big as I can. And now the slightly tricky part is to feed this back through now. And if you start with a corner, usually lets you pull that through. So what I'm then doing is making sure that the waist buckle is actually going to go through and be able to slide nice and easily. And then as a double check, what you want to do is make sure that the bits of excess are the right way around. If this is going to be the outside of the harness, then obviously this is touching the body and then this part's away from the body. So that's just to make sure that spine piece is done. When you assemble the spine, there's a couple of things that you might want to add before you complete the full assembly. One is a canister plate. I quite often dive with a torch pretty much every dive. So I like to have a way of putting it on the crotch full time. You can use figure of 8 bungee, but with the soft webbing, it tends to crumple a little bit. So just a standard plate. And what I want to do is I want to place it so that there is a piece of material protecting the canister. I don't want the canister to be rubbing on the metal itself. Now I personally only put it through 2 out of the 4 slots, and the reason for that is I do like to be able to make little small adjustments depending on what garments I'm wearing and cord length. So that piece is going to come on here. What you then need to take care of is that there's going to be the part on the crotch that allows the waist webbing to weave through. So you'll see here there's a bolt hole, and depending on which way around you're going to attach things to that, I like to have the fold always going away from the diver. Now the height of this, of course, is dependent on where we're going to run the waistband, but I'm just going to install it to begin with, and then we'll adjust that once the unit's on. And of course the waistband is going to run through there. Now, although there is, of course, loop bungee holes here, for some mechanical reasons, you may prefer to take a spine plate so that lets you fine-tune the position. Now, I don't know if I'll need to use that, but I'm going to put it on anyway because it's easier to put on first rather than last. Same idea, going to have the fold coming away from the diver. That's here now. Then I'm going to put the excess rubber protector. And then I want to think about which way round I want my plate to be visible. So I know that I want the writing to be visible to the outside world, but I want my excess to finish away from the diver. So I'll just show you an alternative way to make the crotch loop using a standard tri-glide and a D-ring. And we're going to work now just from the different end of the webbing. We know we want to end up with the excess on the inside. So what we're going to do is just run a normal tri-glide. Just like this. But this time, we're going to use the tail end, the longer end, to come back through. So I'm just going to push the tri-glide back more easily to access. And this long part that's just going to come through, back through the D-ring itself. And now just through the slot. Then if you want to shorten this, push that back down through. And that's now your loop. So you're literally just starting at the opposite end, and you're making this